civilian review board, independent investigations. Those are important. Those should be givens. But we can be thinking bigger than that.
Hi, welcome to See You Live. My name is Walker Evans. I'm the co-founder of ColumbusUnderground.com. Joining me today is Morgan Harper, lawyer and former congressional candidate.
You got it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Wanted to chat with you a little bit today about police reform. We've had a lot of protests in recent weeks. A lot of the outcomes of those protests are centered around police reform. That's not the only thing, but that's one of the big things, both in Columbus and other cities all around the country. What sort of reforms? A lot of people are talking about, defunding the police. Some are concerned that language can put up kind of a barrier because it sounds like eliminate all funding for the police. But there's more to it than that, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I think the biggest thing that I am trying to tell people is, look, we have an unprecedented level of attention and awareness around issues of police violence, and we have had global organization around that issue. So we need to be thinking about what are the reforms to match that moment, right? And so we shouldn't just settle. And to me, a lot of the tinkering around the edges type policies of civilian review board, independent investigations, those are important. Those should be givens. But we can be thinking bigger than that. And, talking about defunding the police is really a pause in a cycle. We've had a cycle of giving a certain amount of money, which in Columbus is a large amount of money, hundreds of millions of dollars amount of money to fund police. And we do see that there's been mission creep in policing.
Right.
So can we pause, take a look at what we actually need the police to serve a function for? Are there things that would be better served by social workers, by mental health professionals? And then we can have a different distribution of resources.
Yeah.
So that would be more of a transformative type of change that could match this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some leaders kind of pose the question of, what do we want our police to do? Like, let's hit the reset switch and start from there. What should they be doing? What are they best equipped to do? What are their resources best used for?
Right.
And then kind of figure out what the rest move
and then
elsewhere.
there's a movement to consider whether or not we need police in our schools, and that's a student or a Columbus City School alum-led movement to say, hey, we went through this experience of having police in our schools. This is what it felt like. Doesn't seem like it's the best use of resources for our community, especially when we have schools that don't have air conditioners, for example, right? So pause. Let's look at what we've been doing. Is it having the desired impact? And if not, let's do things differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you compare and contrast, kind of larger school districts with suburban school districts, I think you see a big discrepancy too in how those communities allocate their resources when it comes to education, preventative types of things, addressing, drug addiction or mental health issues. They seem to do it differently than larger cities that are just, catch all, give it all to the police, like attack the problem after it's a problem versus trying to prevent the problem from ever happening.
Right.
So reforming the police is, like you mentioned, it's not a new conversation in Columbus. There have already been, reviews and studies and things that have happened. What do you think some of the biggest stumbling blocks to get those things implemented has been in the past?
Like everything. Political will, leadership,
just human inability to change. I mean, people resist change in general.
People resist change, and I think we have political leaders that are comfortable with the status quo, to be honest, because the status quo preserves your ability to continue to move up in political career chains, and I think that's another thing that we need to be looking at. I have never run for local office, so I'm not intimately familiar with running a city, but I do think even taking lessons from the congressional campaign that I ran, it was about grassroots campaigns. Being a grassroots candidate means that you're accepting money from individuals and then are freer to use your position to just focus on getting things done, not worry about who's giving you money. The FOP, if the Fraternal Order of Police is funding your campaigns, how are you possibly free to fight for the community on police reform, right? And so I think we as a community need to be honest about the history that led us to this point, the history that led people to feel like they had to take to the streets, not just because of George Floyd, but because of the inaction in Columbus on the impacts of police violence for families here whose family members have been killed, and look at what type of leadership is going to move us in a better direction moving forward. And if it's the same people that have been around for the whole time that got us here, well, logic would suggest that perhaps those aren't the best people necessarily to lead us into a new era of accountability.
Yeah. The Columbus Columbus Police Department disbanded the Vice Unit, I think last year. Do you think that's a precedent for being able to say, you know, we found an issue, we made a change. Change is not impossible. We can continue to make these changes moving forward. Does it set a precedent that we're able to move things in a new direction?
I wouldn't say that it suggests a precedent for moving in new directions. I think it was an example of something that got a lot of press attention, and then there was pressure to do something similar to what we are seeing right now.
Yeah.
So if this is what it takes to get you to use your position to do as much as possible, then that's not effective leadership.
Right. Are there other things that you think the community is looking to see happen more rapidly, or do you think some of these changes are going to take time to implement?
I hope they don't take as much time as we've seen. You know, the things like Civilian Review Board, independent investigations. These are policies that have been done in other places. There are models for how to do them, and they should be fairly straightforward to implement. You know, but I also have people that are reaching out to me with totally new ideas. I had someone reach out to me on social media saying, Morgan, I like this idea of no contact policing, that why do we have armed officers who are handling traffic stops, for example?
Right,
At this point, there's technology that exists to run the plates. You know who the person is if you caught them doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Why do we need to have any contact and then give that possibility for an escalation that could lead to a more violent situation? So I think what's also interesting about this moment as a result of the protests is that it is leading people to think more creatively, in a way, about our relationship with the police, and then also think more creatively about what specific reforms would prevent the types of incidents that we've seen in the past.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us about police reform today.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.